Daily Trust News Center. This is the News Hour.
On News Hour tonight, leaders of organized labor boycott meeting with government officials on fuel subsidy removal. Troops neutralize 89 terrorists as 4 abducted Zamfara female students regain freedom. Court fixes date for judgment in suit instituted by Senator Bulkachwa against ICPC. And on the foreign scene, Nigerian General Tchiani named head of transitional government after coup. Hello and welcome to Trust News Hour. I am Abdurrahman Omar. Thanks for joining. Now the news. The scheduled meeting between the organized labor and federal government ended abruptly on Friday evening with the representatives of the Nigerian Labour Congress led by the national president Joe Ajoro walking out of the venue because a quorum was not formed. A member of the Labour delegation who spoke on the condition of anonymity said the federal government was not ready for the meeting and none of its senior representatives showed up for the meeting. He said there were supposed to be 3 subcommittees that will brief the steering committee on progress made so far, including the mass transit, CNG, and cash transfer subcommittees, but none of them showed up for the meeting. Recall that the steering committee meeting had met with the government delegation on Wednesday, where the 2 parties agreed to reconvene on Friday to get brief from the 3 subcommittees set up to look into various demands. The steering committee was set up by the government to come up with palliatives that will cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal on the workers. The Nigerian Labour Congress has shown discontent with the federal government ever since fuel prices jumped from 533 to 617 naira per litre and has called for protests on the 2nd of August. Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir, you were in the villa. What was the true state of affairs? Was government ready for this meeting or was it not?
The government was ready. The Nigeria Labour Congress came into the meeting about 5 p.m. Before the Nigeria Labour Congress came into the meeting, the Chief of Staff had checked in on the meeting to see if all actors were present. When he saw that Labour representatives were not around, he now went down to the President's office, I think to have some discussions with him. And then before he came back, the Labour leaders had come in. I think the point of discontent for the Labour leaders was that there are subcommittees that were supposed to brief the steering committee, out of which Labour was there, on preparations that had been made so far for palliatives for Nigerians. There was the CNG, the Compressed Natural Gas Committee, there was the Palliatives Committee itself, and then there was a 3rd committee that was supposed to brief, and then based on those briefs, go forward with the meeting. So while the representatives of government that were there were prepared to go ahead with the meeting, the absence of those subcommittees and the fact that the numbers did not form a quorum was what decided the organized labor delegation to walk out of the meeting.
All right. What do you think is the implication of the temporary breakdown of talks? Was organized labor right to walk out of the meeting?
Well, if you look at its reasons, they are the right reasons. Organized labor, especially the Nigeria Labour Congress, has been very testy ever since prices went up from 533 naira per litre to 617 naira per litre, because it felt as if maybe government had led it on, you understand, and they were not prepared for that 617 naira per litre without the palliatives coming on board. So no palliatives, fuel prices have gone further up, workers cannot get to work, there's hardship around the country, and most people believe that the Nigeria Labour Congress did not defend their interests you understand, and probably sold out. And so organized labor has been upset since that increase in price. So, this was like, the breaking point, and they just had to show their displeasure. Remember that there's a protest that has been organized for August the 2nd, which the Nigeria Labour Congress says there's no going back on.
All right. Now we are looking down to the barrel of a national protest. Is there a way to stopping this protest?
Well, it's negotiations. I think what organized labor or the Nigeria Labour Congress is asking for is a reversal of those prices to 533. That was the price before the 617. To allow for palliatives to come into play before there is any, although I don't speak for them, but basically that's what you would see as their mindset. They believe that they were ambushed by this new price, and that government is taking them for a ride. And particularly because when they went to that meeting, they felt that the representatives of government that should have been in that meeting were not present. Yeah. You understand? So, yes, negotiations going forward. And I think one way or the other, government has to give something if there has to be some kind of peace in the land. Because if things degenerate to a national protest, all we know is how the protest will start. We don't know where it will end.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
The 4 kidnapped female students of Zamfara State College of Art and Sciences, Zakas Gusau, have regained their freedom after the Nigerian kidnappers has released 2 video clips at different periods in which the victims were seen crying and appealing for help from the government and wealthy individuals for their freedom. Mother of one of the victims died after watching the video. They were kidnapped along Bimini Magaji Kauranamuda Road in January 2023 while returning from a wedding ceremony. The State Police Command confirmed that they were rescued by security operatives in the state. The Defense Headquarters says the military has neutralized 59 terrorists, arrested 88 criminals, 10 kidnappers, 20 gunmen, and 19 suspected oil theft in 1 week. The Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, in a statement on Friday, said the troops also rescued 88 kidnapped hostages within the period. In the northeast, Buba said the troops of Operation Hadinkai conducted offensive operations against the terrorist enclaves in Woza, Kunduga, Bama, and Mafa local government areas of Borno State, neutralizing terrorist rescued hostages and recovered weapons. According to him, troops neutralized 13 terrorists, arrested 12 and rescued 18 hostages, while a total of 764 terrorists, comprising 2 adult males, 336 adult females, and 426 children, surrendered to the troops at different locations within the theater. The troops also arrested suspected cattle rustlers and bandits in Guma, in Benue, and gun runners in Doma in Nasarawa State, recovering a large quantity of ammo, adding that a total of 17 suspects were apprehended. Buba said the troops of Operation Hadarindaji rescued 50 kidnapped victims in Talata Mafara and Maru local government area of Zamfara and neutralized 5 terrorists in Kazana, Zamfara, and Sokoto states. Meanwhile, Fulani pastoralists and farmers in Gombe are reacting to the state government's plan to retrieve all cattle routes and grazing reserves taken over from herders to address farmer-herder conflicts in the state. Gombe State has witnessed some violent farmer-herder conflicts that claimed lives and properties. Ibrahim Ismail reports.
Farmer-herder clash had claimed thousands of lives and properties worth millions of naira in different parts of the country. The crisis has been persistent despite efforts by governments and community leaders. Will this decision to retrieve grazing reserves yield the desired outcome in addressing the crisis?
If you acquire your farm legally and lawfully, that is going to happen to you. But if you know your farm is encroaching a forest reserve or a game reserve illegally, then you have every cause to fear. So I will assure the farmers that our committee is going to be very honest and objective, and we will listen to them. So all stakeholders listen to them, and then we get a very good report for the government.
Farmers have been blamed over alleged grabbing and conversion of grazing reserves and cattle route to farmlands.
This is a welcome idea and this is a very good thing. That is what you have been sensitizing and drawing attention and calling to our teaming smallholder farmers to know actually where they're supposed to farm or something of that nature. So if this committee will work amusedly to address this issue so that our cattle rearers will have their way and also our farmers will have their farmlands to go for their farming activities.
Over the years, the Fulani pastoralists have been known for leading herds of cattle from one location to another. Are they willing to minimize movements?
Moving with herds of cattle from one end to the other, more than 100 kilometers, 100 miles, should be thought. That is to say, people have to sit down and think about it. We have a big job to do, something that we inherit. For you to change the mindset of someone to move from A to B is a task.
Now, the chairman, Northern Governors Forum, wants to use his influence to recommend his idea of recovering cattle routes and grazing reserves to his colleagues as a solution to the farmer-herder conflict.
To trace cattle routes that were blocked, leading to perennial and incessant clashes between nomadic herdsmen and farmers in the state.
It is now left to be seen whether the decision of the state government will produce any positive result. Ibrahim Ismail, Trust TV News, Gombe.
Sokoto State Judicial Commission of Inquiry on the sale and auction of government assets by the immediate past administration in the state has vowed to deal with any persons who give false evidence before it. Retired Justice Moazu Pindiga, the panel's chairman, made the assertion at the inaugural meeting of the commission on Friday in Sokoto. According to Pindiga, the commission members were not out to witch hunt, hound or paint anyone black. He said the commission is simply out to unearth the truth, to give recommendations in accordance with the law. The chairman also stated that Section 7 of the Commission of Inquiry law had vested power on the members to procure all the required evidence, written or oral. He added that the commission had also been vested with the power to direct arrest and detention of willful or neglected failure to respond to each invitation and summonses. He announced that the commission will commence its inquiry on August 7, while appealing to the citizens of the state to assist it in making its work a success. Justice Inyang Eku of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has fixed October 25th for judgment in a suit filed by Senator Adamu Bulkachua against the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Department of State Services, DSS, and the Nigeria Police Force. Bulkachua, married to the immediate past president of the Court of Appeal, Justice Zeno Bulkachua, cited the June 15th letter of invitation sent to him by the ICPC over his comment on the floor of the Senate, which he said many had misinterpreted as influencing his wife's decision in some cases while she was the president of the Court of Appeal. He argued that as a senator, he was immune from arrest or detention over any of his conduct, action or speech on the floor of the Senate. Bulkachua stated that he was surprised to receive an invitation from the ICPC asking him to report for interview on June 22nd for interrogation over his comment on the floor of the Senate. In a counter affidavit, the clerk of the National Assembly argued that Bulkachua enjoyed immunity from any form of proceedings in respect of words spoken or written at the plenary session. Lawyer to the Attorney General Oyin Koleozu faulted the plaintiff's argument, contending that he no longer had any immunity from arrest and prosecution because he had ceased to be a senator. Justice Inyang Eku subsequently adjourned the suit to October 25th for judgment. Justice Inyang Eku of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has dismissed the preliminary objection filed by the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, against Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah's 20 billion suit over alleged certificate forgery. In his ruling, Justice Eku held that the provisions of Section 20 of the NYSC Act do not relate to Mba, as he is not currently a serving NYSC member and intended one employee of the coup. At the last adjourned date, the Council of NYSC had argued that Mba contravened the NYSC Act and the institution of the Sun, while urging the court to strike out the suit. He said Mba did not appeal to the president as required by the provisions of Section 20 of the NYSC Act before instituting the suit against them. The NYSC had issued a disclaimer on February 1st, 2023, in response to a request for information on the NYSC status of Peter Mba, pursuant to Section 1 of the Freedom of Information Act 2011. Meanwhile, Shehu Sani, who represented Kaduna Central in the 8th Senate, has described the ministerial list of President Bola Tinubu as a big disappointment. The human rights activist criticized the inclusion of former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, in the list. Senator Sani said Tinubu did not consider competence in the list, adding that El-Rufai was a tragedy. Sani said it's the best time to appease Nigerians and to bring in competent hands to deliver, but the list is a big disappointment, speaking about the last 8 years in the hands of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, and what is playing out now. Sani said Tinubu should take Nigeria to a great height of growth and development. Idris Shuaibu has emerged as substantive chairman of opposition APC in Adamawa State. This comes after months without substantive party chairman in the state. Until his emergence as chairman, Shuaibu served as the party's state legal advisor in the state. Shuaibu was sworn in after his new position was ratified by the State Executive Council of the party. The party's state secretary, Raymond Chidama, who had earlier explained that Shuaibu was nominated for the position by the executive committee of the party in Adamawa Northern Zone, said the zone had made the case that since the immediate past chairman, Ibrahim Bilal, came from the zone, someone from the zone should take Bilal's position. The party scribe read out a letter from the Northern Zone nominating Idris Shuaibu and members of the State Executive Council who attended the emergency meeting at the APC State Secretariat in Yola, and those the nomination. As while acting state chairman Sama'ila Tadawos returned to his position as vice chairman, the new chairman said his immediate task will be the reconciliation of aggrieved APC members. A new approach to learning in basic primary schools has been introduced to help reduce the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, particularly the girls' child education. Education specialists disclosed this to journalists at the Central Primary School in Misau, Bauchi State, during an assessment of the new system to know the level of commitment towards achieving sustainable development goal for Target 2030. Adamu Imam completes the report.
United Nations Children Fund UNICEF designed a special education system accommodate out-of-school children. Under the system called Teaching at the Right Level, TAL, irrespective of the level they stopped going to school, pupils are put together in the same class and taught basic numeracy activities.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Abdurrahman Ado, education specialist with United Nations Children's Fund, says Nigeria is unlikely to achieve SDGs 4, looking at the percentage of out-of-school children across states of the Federation.
In terms of increasing the number of out-of-school children so that we reduce the number of out-of-school children and also to improve on the learning outcome. And we will see that even when we look at the financing of education, we look at it that still it's not within the threshold, and the threshold is about 36 GDP percentage, and which you look at for Nigeria, it's not up to that percentage.
Teachers are trained how to handle the method, using objects that depict what they are being taught that will sink into their heads.
Governments. UNICEF sponsored that of Alkali. State government took off Ningi and Zaki. They are now in the field doing the job, and we are here now in the south. These are all efforts of the executive governor of Bauchi State, and we commend him for that. And we pray he will scale up when we see the importance. From record now, 37 pupils came back to school. They were out of school. 17 of them females, 20 of them males, as a result of TAL approach. So it's very commendable.
Education Secretary of Misau Local Government Council, Alhaji Abdul, said the new approach has greatly improved the education system of the area. Chairman School-Based Management Committee, Saleh Jarmaju, commended UNICEF and SUBEB for the new system, saying the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria is alarming and must be addressed.
That program is wonderful. Yes, what you are teaching. The plan is that it's going to affect our literacy and knowledge.
Education specialist Abdurrahman Ado said the system was introduced in 2018 in Borno State to augment what is done in the schools, considering the insurgency that kept children out of school. Adam Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
A 4-bedroom building and 10 shops were gutted by fire on Thursday at Ile Olola compound, Esa Junction along Olofa Way of our local government of Kwara State. Reports say the fire destroyed properties worth 39.6 million. According to the spokesman of the Kwara State Fire Service, Hassan Adekule in Ilorin, a distress call reported a fire incident at Ile Olola compound, Esa Junction along Olofa Way of our local government area of Kwara State. He said the firemen at the scene displayed remarkable skill and efficiency, employing their powers to contain the fire and prevent its spread to adjacent structures. Hassan said through their swift response and strategic firefighting maneuvers, they successfully reduced the menace of the fire, safeguarding nearby buildings from further damage. Preliminary investigations indicated that the fire was caused by a power surge, which ignited the inferno within the building. You are watching the News Hour on Trust TV. Coming off after the break, we take a look at ways anthrax disease separate. These are more after the break. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is the News Hour on Trust TV. Here are some of the recap of some of our top stories. Leaders of organized labor boycott meeting with government officials on fuel subsidy removal. And troops neutralize 89 terrorists as 4 abducted Zamfara female students regain freedom. Now moving on to other stories. And economist David Akigar said stabilizing the economy is the best solution to the country cost of living crisis. He is contributing to the ongoing debate on increasing minimum wage to 200,000 naira following fuel subsidy removal. Jimmy Azande sends this report from Makurdi.
Nigeria's economy is impulse-driven, which explains its rising inflation as response to external market forces. Rising cost of living worsened when government announced fuel subsidy removal, prompting the organized labor to begin agitation for salary increase. These economists say salary increment to workers may provide a short-term solution, but will eventually create more problems for the country.
Compared to the proposed 200,000 naira minimum wage, if that is implemented, first, in the short run, in the very short run, it will have impact. But if other economic parameters that affect people's welfare, such as inflation and other important parameters, are not worked upon, you will discover that within a short while, the impact, that is the net impact, will be diminished value. There will be diminished value, that is the real value will be diminished. So it will not amount to any welfare enhancement.
The issue of negotiating up to 200,000 as minimum wage now, given the present economic realities, I don't think it is realistic. It is not in the sense that you already have the recurrent component of the government expenditure rising far above the capital expenditure, which if you want to drive growth, it should be the capital expenditure that should be higher than the recurrent. So at the moment, what the government should focus on is to see how they can bring down the prices of commodities in the economy.
They urge the government and the organized labor to think about creating value for the economy.
Because unless we're engaged in production, the value of our naira will continue to go down. We are operating, or we are part of the international market now. So whatever we're putting out there should be something that has value. Presently, Nigeria exports crude oil. No value is added to it. As you can see, we've lost refining capacity. So we can't earn in dollars. We need to start earning in dollars for this particular kind of inflation to go down. So we may put 200,000, 300,000, but if we're dealing with the international community and the value of our currency is low, as you can see what is happening with fuel prices going up and coming down. So what happens if you increase it to 200,000 and we now have to buy $1 at 1,000 naira or more?
They argue that some states have failed to implement 30,000 naira minimum wage, wondering what will happen if the Labour suggestion of 200,000 naira minimum wage is approved. Jimmy Azande, Trust TV News, Makurdi.
Traders at Fatima Baker Central Market in Katsina are not happy with the conduct of some internally displaced persons who occupy shop premises. The traders say the IDPs, mostly women and children, are becoming nuisance to them, especially at night. Abdullahi Ahmadi completes the report.
Though no IDP camp was created for the internally displaced persons in Katsina State, women, mostly from Basari, Safana and Gangara local government areas, running from the ravaging banditry in their localities, called this place their home. They are solely depending on begging at the central market to survive. They usually pass the night at this market and in the process constitute nuisance to shop owners.
It is not our wish to leave our homes for the sake of coming to the city and be begging. No, it is out of necessity. Most of us have many dependents. Our husbands and parents have been killed by bandits. What else do you expect us to do? We are victims of banditry and have nobody to depend on except God. That is why you see us hanging around this central market. We beg for arms to survive and we sleep here at night as a last resort.
Traders say the IDPs often defecate openly, a situation they say is unacceptable and unhygienic. This elderly woman, though not an IDP, is from Dankaba village area of Kaita local government. She is sick and has been here for about 8 months without medication.
As you can observe, I am sick and down with malaria for long, with no one to take care of me here. I'm old and seriously weak. Someone bought some drugs for me the other time, but my challenge now is what to eat.
Katsina residents are appealing to the relevant authorities to assist these vulnerable people, at least to save the society from another calamity. Abdullahi Ismail Ahmadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Despite a long dry spell and rainfall shortage in Maiduguri for nearly 3 weeks, farmers in Borno State are, however, optimistic and hopeful of bumper harvest. Adamu Golde takes a look at the problems and prospects of this year's farming season from the farmers' perspectives. The report.
Borno State, which is still recovering from 14 years insurgency, has its share of shortage of rainfall in recent times, which made residents to resort to seeking divine intervention as directed by the Shehu of Borno. After the prayers, the state started recovering some showers, renewing the hope of farmers. Lawal Dangua, a farmer who lives in Kuyonimoti village of Akumeri local government area, says that some of the farmers planted twice, and now that the rainfall has come, they are hopeful of a good harvest. Adamu Haruna, another farmer, says most of them used to come from suburb of Maiduguri, adding that government free transport is a major boost for them. Farmers from different local government areas engage in this year's farming to support their family and earn sustainable income.
We are very grateful for all what government done for us, and we farmers, we need more intervention from government.
Borno State government has given us support for this several times. We appeal to the government to come to our aid. After heavy downfall, we came to our farm together with our family. We are really grateful to the Borno State government for helping us in the agricultural sector, and we need more intervention.
Despite initial misgiving occasioned by shortage of rainfall, farmers are optimistic that huge harvests will be recorded in the state.
National Veterinary Research Institute (VOM) says flood and frequent rainfall can easily separate anthrax, a disease that infects animals and humans. Executive Director of the Institute, Maria Mohammed, said this in an interview with Trust TV in Jos. She said the disease can remain in soil without detection for many years. Adam Musa completes the report.
The confirmation of 2 anthrax cases recently in Niger and 1 in Lagos State by the NVRI has created fear not only among animal owners in the country, but also other people who may have contacts with animals. The executive director of the National Veterinary Research Institute said, though anthrax also affects human population, it is more deadly to animals, explaining that people should not worry about spread of the disease.
It's a bacterial disease, even though we do not have to worry about that. It occurs when cloven-footed animals, like I said, eat vegetative grass where the spores of this organism have formed into a deadly organism.
Asked what the symptoms of the disease is and if it can be easily detected, the executive director says signs can be recognized after some days, but in some cases, one will wake up and see his animals dying.
In some cases, they might not be, that is what is referred to as a per-acute case. In some cases, it might not be per-acute. It could take up to 20 days from when the animals are exposed to the disease before you begin to see signs. And some of the signs are, you find that the animal is bleeding from all openings.
She also speaks on the role of the Research Institute in fighting animal diseases like anthrax.
Locally, anthrax is known as safer. Most of our farmers and livestock owners understand it by that name, and we usually say to them, if you suspect that this animal has died of safer, there is no need to open it. You just take a little sample, even if it is just on a cotton swab, and send it to us so that we can confirm if it is.
The director said, due to increase in livestock population, the institute, which is nearly 100 years old, is trying to scale up vaccine production for the country and West African sub-region. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
Medical practitioners identified major causes of hepatitis and how it can be avoided or managed as World Hepatitis Day is commemorated. Jonathan Awonyai sends this report from Asaba.
Medical experts have expressed concern over the prevalence of viral hepatitis, adding that there is a need to increase sensitization and improve access to diagnosis and treatment. In an interview with Trust TV in Asaba, they harped on the need for improved awareness, especially around hepatitis B and C, which are the most common in the country. According to them, major causes include use of herbal drugs, unsafe sexual practices, self-medication, consumption of excess alcohol, poor personal hygiene and poor sanitation, unscreened blood during transfusion, among others. They added that it is important to be vaccinated against hepatitis to prevent infection.
That will make someone to contact the infection, like all these bad behaviors, like having to do with multiple sexual partners, indiscriminate use of needles and all these things, and then be able to screen, especially for people that work in the hospital, and if they should be careful with when you are giving somebody blood, make sure that it's blood that is properly screened, and a pregnant woman gets tested so that if you know you have the, because you can pass it on to the fetus, you get tested, get vaccinated, or get treated if you are positive of the infection.
It's preventable. It's something that can be prevented. If Nigerians are aware of hepatitis B, many of them that have died before wouldn't have even died. It's avoidable death. They take their vaccines and they know they live a healthy lifestyle. They should not be sharing needles or unhealthy sexual intercourse. They have to prevent themselves in order not to have it. And screening is very important. They can go for screening so that they will be able to know if they are positive. And once they are positive, it's for them to go to the hospital to be treated.
Jonathan Awanyai for Trust TV News.
In the meantime, cases of sexually and gender-based violence are said to have been on the rise in recent times in Benue State. According to residents, the relevant authorities have failed to address these inhumane treatments of minors or the vulnerable, leading to more of such atrocities being committed. Jimmy Azende reports.
According to residents of Makurdi, no day passes without a case of rape being reported in one part of the state. They condemned the act in strong terms and called for cultural reorientation.
In recent times, you hear of somebody raping a 4-year-old girl. It befalls me a lot because there are ladies out there who, as they're ready to offer themselves for money purposes, why not go out there?
Someone rapes your mother, would you feel happy? Someone rapes your sister, would you feel happy? So you also feel within you that rape is a very bad offense. And anybody caught in this act should be disciplined.
Concerning the situation that just happened here in Benue State, seriously, it's very devastating. Rape is something that is not acceptable in society because seeing what is going on in the society and how people and what guys have been doing to young.
And while adults engage in rape, some said the act is connected with certain rituals in most cases.
It's very bad and it's not a common thing that we should just look at it as a mere issue because it's something that is not ordinary. It is a ritual thing. Some of them do it because of their ritual obligations, that it is what they have to do.
Policymakers in the education sector are urged to incorporate sex education into the school curriculum.
The government is neglecting this thing. You see, at a point,
I feel we should be able to incorporate sexual education or sexual enlightenment as part of the educational curriculum, maybe at the secondary level. And then it's not even bad because of this prevalent, it's becoming an issue of concern. So it's not even bad if you are able to incorporate it as part of the GSTs in tertiary institutions.
For many, a lot needs to be done to reduce cases of rape in the state and society at large.
Rape is against humanity, and no one should encourage it. Parents should rise up against rape, teachers should talk against rape, and everyone should come together to erase that. People caught in the act of rape should be brought to justice.
Mixed reactions greeted Makurdi town on Tuesday, following reports of a 43-year-old man who raped a 4-year-old girl in the North Bank area of the town. Jimmy Azande, Trust TV News, Makurdi.
The Osun State Police Command has arrested 6 suspected armed robbers along the Oshu-Ile-Ife highway. At the police headquarters in Osogbo, one of the suspects said the struggle to feed and survive forced him to join the robbery gang. Hamid Oyebade filed in the report.
According to the command, policemen attached to Oshu Divisional Police Headquarters engaged the robbers in gun duel after receiving a distress call that armed robbers were robbing motorists on the Oshu-Ile-Ife highway in the midnight. The policemen, the command noted, overpowered the armed robbers and arrested some of them, while others escaped into the bush with bullet wounds.
We went back to the drawing board, and the vigilante group, we set them out, and they were able to gather good intelligence for us to operate on. And to God be the glory, just last week, it was an operation carried out throughout the night on Saturday to Sunday night, where we were able to apprehend some of these highway robbers. And we did arrest 2 of them. One with bulletproof. One of them initially, the case was transferred to the anti-kidnapping section of the command. At the end of the day, we were able to arrest 6 of them.
The suspects in custody confessed to the crime, with many of them saying that joblessness and the struggle to feed and survive forced them into joining robbery gang.
What comes to a man is equals to a man that should try and work with them and find money to eat. Moreover, my wife is pregnant, so I now follow them and flash, and they give me touch. The next day I flash for them. They share some jewelries. I don't have somebody to buy it. That bike man take the jewelries to his house. So I say we will find somebody to sell it for me. The next day was this Sunday that they arrested me. They said we should go. Then as we reach, they now bring out all this gun. The gun is not working through, but they say when the flight touch, that somebody that will go and meet the motor should just show it to the motor person, that the person will look at the gun and stop.
Guns and items stolen from their victims were recovered from the suspects. The Commissioner of Police said they will be prosecuted in court. Hamid Oyebade, Trust TV News, Osogbo.
This is Trust News Hour. We will be back after this break. Welcome back, and now let's join Chiamaka Nwafo for business news.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has limited the number of dollars to be transacted on the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, to $200,000 per quarter by authorized dealer banks, ADB, and $20,000 per quarter for a customer. The Apex Bank disclosed this in a recent circular signed by its Director of Trade and Exchange, Ozemen Anaji. It stated that transactions would be priced based on CBN's foreign exchange, adding that multiple applications through different ADBs are not allowed. PAPS is an international payment system and cross-border financial market infrastructure, enabling remittance payments and trade between African countries. The World Bank Group has urged Nigeria to reduce government borrowing from the central bank if it wants to reduce the inflationary pressure on the economy. World Bank's lead economist for Nigeria, Alex Sernert, stated this during an economic review session at the Lagos Business School. In his keynote presentation, Sernert commended the government for its recent economic reforms, but noted that such reforms would have to be sustained for the economy to recover from the present shocks and record considerable growth in the near future. According to him, the fact that petrol price has significantly increased created pressure on the economy. He added that a variety of solutions would have to be devised in order to mobilize more revenue in a way that spending would be increased to tackle the real priorities in the country. And finally, the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC posted a 3.2 billion naira turnover for the half year ended June 30th, 2023. This represents about 16% decrease on its previously reported 3.8 billion naira turnover in 2022. The market regulator shared its bottom line figures by 45.85% to settle at a profit after tax of 444 million naira from profit after tax of 840 million naira declared in the preceding period of 2022. Consequently, the company's earnings per share dropped by 45.85% from 0.02 naira in 2022 to a 0.01 naira in the current period under review. With a large outstanding number of shares running to over 52 billion, the price-to-earnings ratio stood at 3,223.16 and earnings yield of 0.03%. And that's it on Business News. I am Chiamaka Nwafo.
And now on the international scene, Abdurrahmani Chiani, head of Niger's Presidential Guard, has named himself head of a transitional government in the West African country, 2 days after his unit overthrew democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum. He made the announcement on Friday on state-run television, saying he was the president of the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland. The 62-year-old general also said the intervention had been necessary to avoid the gradual and inevitable demise of the country. He said that while Bazoum had sought to convince people that all is going well, the harsh reality is a pile of debt, displaced humiliation and frustration. There was no mention of a timeline for return to civilian leadership. Chiani, who was drafted to lead the elite unit in 2015, is from Niger's western region of Tilaberi, a main recruitment area for the army. He remains a close ally of former President Mahamudu Issoufou, the politician who led the country until 2021. The general reportedly led the resistance to a thwarted coup attempt in March 2021, when a military unit tried to seize the presidential palace days before Bazoum, who had just been elected, was due to be sworn in. The coup is the fifth successful one in the landlocked country since it gained independence from France. In his separate telephone conversations with President Bola Tinubu on Thursday evening in Abuja, United States Vice President Kamala Harris and United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed strong support for Nigeria's efforts toward the restoration of constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. The two leaders also commended the Nigerian president, who is also the chairman of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, for spearheading the peace moves. In a statement signed by Special Advisor, Special Duties, Communication and Strategy, Dele Alake, said Harris praised the reform initiatives of the federal government, urging the country to continue in that direction. The U.S. Vice President spoke on the need for Africa, including Nigeria, to embrace energy transitions. The statement said President Tinubu thanked Harris for her words of encouragement on the efforts taken so far on the economy, but added that the developments in Niger Republic dampen spirits. Tinubu said ECOWAS under his watch will do all that is necessary to restore democracy in Niger, while counting on the support of the U.S. Speaking with the UN Secretary General Guterres, President Tinubu said he was doing everything possible to resolve the impasse in Niger, while expressing the hope that the situation in Niger could still be reversed for better. He said ECOWAS will require UN support for restoring democracy and building institutions in that country. And now on sports news, Arsenal have unveiled a bronze statue of legendary former manager Arsene Wenger outside Emirates Stadium. He helped the Gunners to 3 Premier League titles and 7 FA Cups during his reign from 1996 to 2018. The Frenchman is lifting the Premier League trophy in the 3.5-meter statue outside the North Bank stand. The 73-year-old will be a guest of honor for Arsenal's home friendly against Monaco, another of his former clubs, on Wednesday. Wenger, who now works for FIFA, is synonymous with Arsenal's recent history. That last season's title battle and second place finish under Mikel Arteta is their best Premier League campaign without Wenger in charge. He managed 1,235,000 matches at Arsenal, mostly famously overseeing the only unbeaten Premier League campaign when Arsenal won the 2003-2004 title. He took them into the Champions League in 20 consecutive years. Next season will be their first campaign in the competition without Wenger in charge since the 1991-1992 European Cup. He joins 5 other Arsenal legends with statues outside the ground: Tony Adams, Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry, Herbert Chapman, and Ken Fryer. Arsenal boss Arteta, who was signed as a player by Wenger in 2011, he said it's such a great tribute that the club has done something special for Arsenal that he fully deserves and merits. And with that, we have come to the end of the News Hour on Trust TV. Do not forget to follow us across all our media platforms and our YouTube live stream. I am Abdurrahman Omar. Thanks for watching and bye for now.
From the Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.